Hello, everybody. It's your girl Ashley, the amateur expert, coming to you live for this episode of Talk Tuesday. Super excited to be back with you this week. Going to be talking to Rob, who is an musician, a producer, an artist, and just super excited to have another creative with us in the building. If this is your first time joining, welcome. Thank you for being here. And so this is a podcast, right? And we talk about career, we talk about success, we talk about tips and motivators to keep you going. And it's my hope that by you listening to our guest stories every week that you are truly inspired. And Rob is here with us, and I'm excited for you to hear his story and be inspired by him. So let me invite him in the room to chat. Hello, everyone joining. I had to remember how to do this. I feel like an old lady. Okay, here we go. Found it. Perfect. Happy Tuesday, everyone. How are you doing? Hey, Rob.
Yo, what's going on?
How are you? Welcome to the Amateur Expert Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right, so let's jump in.
Mm-hmm.
How are you today? Can you tell us who you are and what you are doing currently for work?
Yes, so my name is Robert Casey. That's my first and middle name. I'm originally from Indianapolis by way of Florida as well, the Orlando area. I'm in LA now. As of right now, I'm majority doing engineer work. I'm also a producer, musician, photographer. I do a lot of different things.
And here at the Amateur Expert Podcast, we love a multi-hyphenate, okay? We don't just do one thing, we do all of the things, and we do them well. Okay, so tell me this, Rob. When you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up, and what was the motivating factor behind that?
Wow, so when I was young, I actually wanted to be a pilot.
Okay.
So yeah, I wanted to be a pilot. I had like an obsession with airplanes. So I remember I was 4 years old. My mom actually took me to fly.
No
So the
way.
first time I flew a plane was when I was four.
What? Like
So
in a
yeah,
simulator, or like you were
no, I
really,
was in a plane.
that
Yeah.
is amazing.
Of course, it was me and the co-pilot, but um, it was a life-changing experience. I remember being up there. I remember the plane. It was like a Cessna small plane. I think it was like a 172. The pilot actually let me turn the plane around
No way.
to go back to land. Yeah. So, yeah, but when I was young, I wanted to be a pilot. My second home is Virginia Beach. And for anybody who's from like the DMV/757 area, you know that's like all military.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I always saw jets flying over different military planes. My grandmother had books on airplanes. So I wanted to be a pilot when I was young. Halloween, I would dress up like a pilot, things like that. But um, I got introduced to music when I was maybe 6 or 7. Like I started playing drums in the church.
Okay.
My best friend at the time, he was a drummer. He was the drummer for the church. So he was like a year and a half, 2 years older than me. So I sat
Mm-hmm.
behind him
Got it.
and I would watch him, and that's how I became a musician. So, yeah.
I love that. Okay. And so when you said it was a life-changing experience, I was like, well, maybe it scared him. And then he was like, nah, man, I don't want to do it anymore. But it sounded like it was out of this world, something that you obviously will never, ever forget.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So tell us how you journeyed from being a drummer at the church to now being a full-fledged artist and a full-fledged musician and producer and doing audio engineering. What was that plan like? Were you intentional in your steps?
Um, all right, so I'm gonna be honest. In school, I was terrible. I made like straight F's.
No.
Yes, that if that would be a thing, it was a thing. I made straight F's in school. And I think it wasn't due to like academic, it was due to just me not being interested.
Hmm.
Like I
Okay.
did excellent on all my tests and everything, but I just hated homework. I
Hmm.
hated the concept of homework.
Yeah.
like going home to do more school. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah, it
never
doesn't
did
really
it.
make sense. I get it. I
No,
get
it's
it.
like I spend 7 hours here and then I gotta go home and do more school. No, I'm
Right.
watching Dragon Ball Z. Like you know what I mean? So I was
Yes.
chilling, but it caught up with me because it got me to a point where I ended up failing the seventh grade and the
Mm,
fourth grade.
got it.
So, but it caught up with me. But high school is when it really, I want to say eighth grade more so, but especially high school. Eighth grade um, is when I figured out, like, okay, I think I want to do music. And I had friends around me who produced and things like that. And
Okay.
once high school came, I went to a school where they it was different. I needed to go to a different school, but the school basically focused more so on getting the students a head start when it came to their career choice.
Okay.
So I was in school Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Tuesday and Thursday, the students were out interning within whatever field they wanted to,
That is an
you know,
amazing school.
pursue. Yeah, it was amazing, and I thank God for it because I don't know what I'd be doing right now if I went to a traditional high school. But it was
Right.
cool too because the classes were a lot smaller, um, only up to like maybe 15 students per class. You pretty
Mm,
much had one person, which they called an advisor.
yeah.
You had one person that you worked alongside all 4 years. You had students there that were graduating high school in 2 years because they allowed you to work at your own pace. So
Okay.
if you took a class and you were done and you took it in like a week, it was like, cool, move on to the next, versus going from class to class and
Right,
things like
right,
that.
right.
So um, I went there. At first, I didn't want to go, but my mom was like, yo, look, they got free tuition. You going to the school. You
Well,
know what I
okay,
mean?
so real quick, that's the same exact thing that happened to me.
Really?
I got a full similar. I got a full ride to this school. And my mom was like,
Hmm.
"There's no way you're not going." And I was like, "But I don't want to." It's for all girls Catholic high school. Was not interested, but
Wow.
totally changed my life, right? And so
Hmm.
to your point, our moms we know it sometimes. Oh,
Yeah.
all the time, most of the
Yeah.
time. But
For
go
real.
ahead.
That's for
So
real.
tell me this: what were when you had the opportunity to intern? What were some of the things that you did?
So at first, I was like, okay, I'm an intern at an airport. I don't know how, but I'm like, I want to intern at an airport, maybe see if I can get a head start with flying.
Yep.
And that just didn't really work out. Like
Mm.
it was almost like we don't know. For one, you're a freshman in high school. What are we going to
Yeah.
really do with you?
But
You know
also,
what I
did you
mean?
let them know that you've been flying planes since you were 4? That would have been my story.
Well, that was the first and only time that I had like I should have said that actually. Should have been like, look, I've been flying since I was 4. I probably got more experience than you.
That's
You
it.
know what I mean? Let me up in here. But nah, they didn't know what to do with me. So it was like, okay, this isn't working out. Uh, but so I turned back to music, was like, okay, what can I do? What do I have an interest in to where I could possibly like intern? So my next thought was radio. Like I
Mm,
had always had a fascination with radio
okay.
from since I was young. And so I started interning at I tried to get in with Radio One.
Hmm.
Um, they it was sort of the same thing. The lady at Radio One, it was a older Caucasian lady, and she was just like, "Ah, you're just too young, and I don't want to be responsible and things like that." But they would still sneak me in and let me record commercials and things like that. But then
Okay.
I got in with MS Communications, which they have stations all over the country, but their headquarters was in Indianapolis, and so I started interning there. I worked along the production director there, did commercial bartering, did commercials, things like that. And then I ended up becoming the program director for a online radio station in high school.
Nice.
Yeah, and so they were a black-owned magazine company, and he was like, "Look, we heard about you at MS Communications. We're starting our own station. It's online. We are a black publication. We like to highlight businesses that are doing really well and entrepreneurs that are doing really well in the city. I was like, okay, cool. And so they allowed me to be the program director to create the time slots in terms of which would play at what time. And then I started my own radio show when I was 16.
Look at you.
And so,
Okay.
yeah, I think I just got tired of people telling me no and I'm too young and you can't do it.
Hmm.
So I started my own radio show when I was 16. Did that for about a year. And from there, also in high school, I learned music production from a friend who made beats there that had a studio at the school. So that was another selling factor. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going into school. And so that's how it all started.
I love that. And then so we talked a little bit earlier offline, but then you decided to go to Full Sail. And
Hmm.
so how did you make that decision in regards to college choice?
Well, for one, I always had this feeling of like, I'm not going to be in this city. Like, because for one, I felt like where the city was versus where I was mentally and most people around me, I had to
Hmm.
sort of hide what I did
Mm.
because people either didn't believe that I was doing some of the things
Yep.
or they didn't understand like that world to where it was like, well, don't you want to be like a doctor or a lawyer or something? Like,
Right.
what's it? Being a musician or a producer or just the entertainment world was like fictional. It was like fantasy.
For
That's that
sure.
movies. That's in the movie stuff. That's not
Right.
like a reality.
How is it going to work for you?
Right. What's your
Hmm.
plan B?
Hmm.
What's your
Hmm.
plan C? You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And it's just
No,
like,
what's your
okay,
plan A
well,
realistically? Because what you're thinking isn't going to work.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So it was, the vibe was just super weird. And I'm like, I need to get out of here. For one, um, I want to go somewhere where it's much more diverse. I want to be able to learn from different people, different cultures, experience new things. And so I heard about Full Sail and I was like, it's in Orlando. I've only been to Florida once. I mean, I was in Miami, but I'm like, okay, check out Orlando. Went down there like that July, went on a tour. It was amazing. Like looking for different apartments. I'm like, okay, I think this is the move. And so, yeah. But it's interesting. Um, the people who found out I was going to Full Sail, everybody was congratulating me heavy, but it was the congratulations was weird, almost like I got a deal or something. You know what I
Oh.
mean? It was just like, oh, you made it. Congratulations, man. It was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm just going to college. But oh, you're going to Full Sail. And it's like, yeah, I
Mm.
am. But people went into it with this mindset of like, I'm going to Full Sail, I got a record deal. Like, you know what I
Oh,
mean? Like I am a
okay.
full-time producer now. Like I am an artist, I'm going to Full Sail. And
So
you get down there
initially,
and it was, yeah.
all right. So initially, when this was the dream, this is what you wanted to do, it was like, no way, you can't make it. It's not going to happen, right?
Hmm.
And then it's like, I've got into Full Sail, and it's like, oh, he made it.
Yeah.
Did
But
you
it's
feel like
funny.
there was a, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, but it's funny. Just people looked at me getting into Full Sail and going like, yo, you got a deal. Like you're signed. You're on your way to the top. And it's not like that. But what was your question?
I was just wondering if you felt like an added pressure because of people's perception.
No, I think because I that was their perception. It wasn't mine.
Hmm.
Like I knew what it was. It's like, okay, this is college.
Hmm.
But then I got down there and it was a completely different thing than I I think people had much more of a shock to what it was than I did, but for me it was still kind of like my shock was a little different. I think my shock to Full Sail was like I already knew a lot going into it. You know what I
Okay.
mean? But Full Sail felt like, especially the first day of class, it felt like, and for anybody who's on here, I just want to see who's on here. But for anybody who has gone to Full Sail, could probably attest to this. Um, it felt like most of the people who went down there woke up that morning and said, you know what, I want to do music. I don't know
Really?
anything about music or this thing, but 5 minutes ago, I just decided I want to do this and I'm going to go to Full Sail.
So that means their
It was
marketing
the,
team must be amazing because they're
oh,
selling
it's
students
crazy.
dreams.
You said it, but that's exactly what people were saying. This is no knock to Full Sail at all. I think people just needed to understand like what you're getting into,
For sure.
although like a lot of people thought one thing, but it's like it's not what you think it is. Like, so I remember meeting people who were like, "Yo, it's my friend." You meet a lot of people who want to be artists going down there, which is cool, but
Hmm.
they went into it with this mindset of like, I'm going to school, and at the same time, I'm going to record my album at the school. You know, I'm going to be the next hottest thing. It's like, yo, this is keep in mind, this is college. You
Yeah,
know,
so they had
and
the wrong mindset for sure.
yeah, like I remember meeting people who were just moving down there and they hadn't even started class yet. They started maybe like that next week, and they're like, "Yo, so when am I going to get a chance to go down there and record my album?" I'm like, "You're probably not. You know, if you want to record your album, you do that in your apartment. But keep in mind, this is college. But and also, I met a lot of people down there who, again, just didn't know anything. You know, like
Mm.
simple things in regards to audio engineering or music, they just had no idea. And it was like, wow, this is interesting. And I remember when I left class that day and people who had been there for, 3 and 4 months already were like, hey, so how was your first day? And I told them, and they were like, let me tell you this. That's exactly my experience. And I'm going to tell you, you may be starting with 100 people, but by the time you graduate, it's probably going to be about 7 to 10 of you. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what happened.
And I think that's a good point just for I think all things in life, right? I think a lot of times, especially I think this generation, we go into or the younger generation,
Hmm.
they have a mindset of sort of like I think they call it like the microwave, right? Like uh, this is what I want. I'm here. I'm just gonna go get it. But in reality, you have to learn the fundamentals. You have to, be able to do an arrangement before you can be the producer or be the artist, right? Or you should know
Hmm.
all of the steps of it. And so I wonder um, if you can share with me. So I forgot to ask you earlier, but when you were younger, what was your idea of success? And then what is your idea of success today? And sort of has it, or not sort of, has it changed? And if so, why?
When I was younger, I don't even think I thought that far. I think when I first started thinking about success was like high school
Okay.
because I was doing a lot. I had like a clothing line for a minute. I was designing clothes. I had this radio show and um, was working in radio. I was traveling in high school. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
going from this event to this event. Like we were the company I was interning with, it was like family. So we were in this city covering this event, and then we were in DC covering the inauguration. We were, you know, doing this and that. So high school for me was a little different, but at that time, I think I got to see success, especially thanks to this particular magazine. The magazine is called Amps Magazine, um,
Okay.
and so I'm grateful for that opportunity because it allowed me to see successful people, especially
Mm-hmm.
Black successful people, all the time. And
So,
so,
when you say successful people, what was your definition of that? Right. So,
mhm,
what were you seeing, or what made you
right.
define that or them as a success?
Well, the cool thing is we got to interview and talk to different people. So, we talked to guys who like had a car dealership in the city.
Mm-hmm.
They owned a Chevy dealership, or this person owned this restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
and this person was a political figure in the city, and so
Mm-hmm.
I got to talk to and meet different business owners and club owners and restaurant owners, dealership owners, and barbershop owners,
Yeah.
beauty shop owners, and each issue we put out, we also featured a local artist,
Nice.
who was doing music throughout the city. And so I guess I had a sort of a myriad of different people that I got a chance to see. And so for me, I ended up being the 16-year-old kid in the club, working a 25 and over, event, networking events or club parties. So I remember trying to look older and dress a little older, trying to fit in. But, I
Yeah.
remember people being like, yo, who's the kid? You know what I mean? He's with me, this and that. And,
Yeah.
I'm setting up chocolate and strawberries because that was like the theme of some of the parties, and things like that. But like having a vest on, trying to look older, you know what I mean? It was interesting, but I got a chance to really, I think that was sort of my first look at like, okay, like this is cool. And I
Yeah.
feel motivated and inspired to do more. Because at
Okay.
that
That's
time I
good.
heard so many no's. I heard a lot of no, you're too young. And then seeing all these different people, I think that really gave me the spark to like, nah, there's no age limit. Like I can do whatever I want at
That's dope.
whatever age I want. Yeah.
That's dope. Okay, so now how are we defining success? How do you define success?
I think success now, it's more so it's of course it's an internal thing versus like an external thing. It's like whatever you set for yourself, like success for me is like uh making sure financially uh myself, my family, my wife, my future kids, they're not wanting for anything, you know. Um Also, especially here recently, I've been doing just a lot of self-reflection, understanding that, you know, um, you literally have to become a different person. You know what I mean? Like
Man.
you have to die to so many different ways and habits
Yes.
because, I know for me, like God, especially this year, has given me such a clear vision in terms of like, this is what I want you to do, but you cannot remain this person. You have to evolve. And so for me, I do a lot of like me versus myself, you
That's
know.
good.
Um, and so success for me, I think, is just me accomplishing uh any and everything I've set out to do.
Yeah.
The whole Full Sail experience. I mean, that was over a decade now, but that changed so much in me. For one, college was a very trying time, but it sort of shook up my world to where it was like I ended up in the middle of it to where it's like I don't know what I want to do now. I went
Yeah.
into it feeling confident, like
Yeah.
this is what I want to do, blah blah blah. But halfway through it, it was just like spinning in circles. Like I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I want to
Yeah.
do, and this is kind of scary. Like if they
Yeah.
handed me my degree tomorrow, and it's like, all right, go out there and be somebody. I'd just be like, I don't know
No.
what I want to do,
Right.
but um, yeah, it's been interesting just evolving and trying to, just figure out
I love
life.
that.
Yeah.
Me versus me is a really good way to put that. And so I wonder, what is something that you know now that you wish you had known sooner in your career?
Hmm. Okay, so I'll say that this is for anybody who wants to start a business or is planning on starting a business.
Hmm.
Um, what I'll say is definitely do as much homework as possible
Not homework.
because,
You don't like homework.
but see, it's now it's like, okay, well, it's like, yeah, you have to, right? Because if not,
Okay.
and referencing homework again, life is pretty much school. And just because you're
Mm-hmm.
out of college doesn't mean you stop paying tuition, if you get what
Yeah.
I mean. So
That
it's
is a
like,
word.
yeah, it's like you have to keep yourself educated. And now it's like I love learning, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm a nerd. I watch documentaries. I know some of the most random stuff. Like I enjoy learning,
Mm-hmm.
but I think um, that's a big lesson I've learned. Is just stuff I wish I'd have known back then that I know now. Is like, look, do all the homework and research you can on certain things. A lot of people just dive into doing stuff,
Yeah.
and then you got legalities, you got all type of different things, and it's like, oh, you didn't know this? Oh, well, for one, the original fee was this, but because you didn't know it, guess what?
Mm.
There's another fee. There's that you
Yeah.
should have known this fee,
Yeah.
and it's like uh, just for one, pray that God will put all the right people in your life and lead you, and all that stuff. But also
Yeah.
do your research. Continue to do your research in whatever field you're in. Like, just be a nerd for whatever you're trying to go after.
That's dope. Okay, so tell me, how do you motivate yourself? And what tips can you give to folks who are entering the entertainment industry or looking to be in the music field? What would you share with them?
Um, how I motivate myself. Um, I'm inspired by a lot of things around me. I'm inspired by certain people. I love, again, watching documentaries. Um, I love learning about things of old. I
Hmm.
love seeing and learning about what used to be, or just, whether it be classic record labels, whether it be, music documentaries. Um, I think that keeps me motivated. What I would say to anybody who's looking to get in it, of course, you and I both, we live in LA,
Hmm.
and a lot of people come here trying to become whatever they have in mind to become.
Yep.
Um, I would say stay true to yourself. I feel like that's such an easy statement, but it's got a lot of depth to it,
Hmm.
because you're going to be put in different circles. You're going to be put in different environments that's really going
Yeah.
to test um, how true you are to yourself. I've seen
Hmm.
people come here, especially, and become completely different people and
Hmm.
have gotten lost,
Yeah.
and so I'll say also, for anybody who wants to get into entertainment or whatever it be, have a specific plan, have a destination, first of all. Um, have a destination in mind. Like, I'm trying to get from here to here. This is the end goal.
Yeah.
Without a destination, then you're just going to be running in circles, working just as hard as everybody else. But you're going
Mm.
to look around and see other people who have gotten further, and you feel like, why am I still in the same spot?
That's
You know what I
good.
mean? But figure out what your destination is, and then put a plan together to figure out, okay, how am I going to get there? Like in LA, there's traffic is something you don't even need to speak about. It's a given,
Oof.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, I know I'm trying to get here, but our minds immediately go into, okay, cool. If I hop on the 405, it's going to be packed. All right, so what if I get off here, come around here, here's some side streets, get back on the 405 where it empties out for a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like figuring out a plan. You know where you're going, though.
Yeah.
I would say for anybody, know where you're going. Don't bite off more than you can chew.
Mm.
If you want to
That's a
do
word.
multiple things, I remember hearing Tyler Perry say this, and this is for me too, because I do multiple things.
Yeah.
I'm a drummer, I'm a bass player, I'm a producer, I'm an audio engineer. I do photography, I do a lot of different things. But I heard Tyler Perry say one time, like, focus on one thing. And at the time, I'm like, how? You know what I mean? But I understood it later on. Basically,
Mm.
what that means is, like, push that one thing that you're trying to go after.
Mm-hmm.
Once that thing blows up for you, then all
Mm-hmm.
the other doors for all the other stuff can happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that way you're not chasing after so many different things at one time because you're one person with 24 hours a day. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so you don't want to burn yourself out. But I would say have a destination in mind, have a game plan,
Mm-hmm.
physically write down your game plan because there is power in actually writing it down.
Amen.
And focus on that one thing, go after it, and then everything else will open up in due time.
Those are some awesome tips. And what I would say to just add a little pizzazz to it is
Mm-hmm.
I was told one time by actually my Ween director, this entertainment industry boot camp that I'd done over the summer. She said to prepare for the train. And
Mm.
so, to your point, have your destination in mind, but also know there could be traffic, right? And so know that you have to sometimes be prepared for setbacks, but keep your mind on the clear vision. But also, if you know that the 405, just to keep in with your what is it called? Your
Analogy.
analogy. Thank you. If you know the 405 is going to have traffic at 4 o'clock, right? And you need to be somewhere at 5, then maybe you need to leave at 3,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed
Yeah.
to thinking you have enough time and then you're late, right? And so I think God honors us when we have our destination in mind and we write it down, but we maybe write it down in pencil or able like a erasable ink so that we could, have some amendments here and there, because sometimes God is going to surely keep us in alignment with His plan. And sometimes there's
Yeah.
a little bit of a curve there, here and there. But Rob, that was some dope, dope, dope advice. And I'm about to replay this and write it down myself so I could keep myself in line.
And to your point, even with that, like a lot of times we do have a plan, but don't allow um, revisions. Like, of course, we have a plan, and then God's like, that's cool, but my plan is ultimately what's going to be. So, although we may be headed to the destination, we're planning
Mm-hmm.
on going straight to, but
Mm-hmm.
God will have us and then go this way. And it's like, wait, but I'm going here,
Right.
and it's like, well, just don't allow his revisions to always search for, like, if there's a door that doesn't open,
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. Like, it just means it's
Yeah.
not for you. Um, don't let setbacks distract you from where you're going or discourage you, because ultimately always look for God in those moments. And like, okay, what are you doing? Like for me, I
Yeah.
worked a corporate job when I first got here to LA for 3 years, and it came right on time. But once I looked up, it's like, okay, I'm ready to get out of this thing. But God kept me in it for a reason. You
Mm.
know what I mean?
Did you come out
And
here just for my own knowledge,
mhm.
and probably some inspiration? Did you come out here for the job, or when you got here you found that job, or that you got that job?
So I came out here. There was somebody who I was working with, and we did this album. He did the album, and I contributed production to it, and it took off. It did very well. It was like, oh shoot, people are really gravitating toward this. Let's do a full length album. It was like, okay, cool. So I ended up moving here,
Mm-hmm.
and we did a full length album. It did really, really well. Um, and so the plan was to be here and do music, but it's like, okay, savings is running out. When I first got to LA, it was like January. It was
Mm-hmm.
January 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't get a job until October.
Mm, mm,
And so you
mm-hmm.
can imagine just the dry spell in like
Yeah.
the days where it's like, okay, I might miss a meal. But I didn't allow that to ever, like, I never had the thought of like, oh, might need to go back home or might need to, you know what I mean? That never crossed
Yeah.
my mind,
Yeah.
so that job came. And so, it was amazing. I got paid more than I thought I would.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but after a period of time, it was like, okay, I ended up doing sales. I never wanted to do sales, but I got put in that boat and it was like, okay, this is starting to really get annoying. But, I had to change my mindset. Instead of thinking like I'm having to work this job, I had to think like, okay, I'm making this job work for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm solely here for the sake of paying my bills.
Yep.
All extra money, I'm fueling the business.
Love that.
And so any money that I made with my gifts, with music, whether I'm playing bass here tonight, whether I'm mixing this album, whether I'm producing this song, all that money that I made, I put back into myself, put back into the business until, God was like, all right, get everything you need because a door is about to close. And
Yeah.
sure enough, I got the last bit of gear that I needed,
Mm-hmm.
and then I got fired.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, which was like the greatest day ever, you know. And essentially, I got fired because I took too many sick days, and I really wasn't sick. I was just sick of
Uh-huh.
being there.
Yeah. I
And
mean, that's
so
sick.
it is. I was sick. I
Literally.
mean, literally, there was a time when L.A. Reid invited me to his house, and I had to try to finesse and figure out, okay, but I have to work that day. And I remember I took the call on the company phone, was like, hey, uh, yeah, yeah, what time? Okay. All right, cool. No, I'll be there. And I hung up. And then I noticed my boss behind me, he hung up his phone at the same time. And I'm
Uh-oh.
like, I think he was just listening in. And I got so upset. And then literally they wrote me up. He called me outside and was like, yeah, so you were using the company's phone for, personal business or whatever. And he was like, oh yeah, and just wherever you're going to, whatever that thing is, we'll see if we let you off to be there. I was like, yo,
Wow.
what? So in my
That's
mind, I didn't
insane.
even want to put in a vacation time to get off. I was just gonna call in sick. Because if I put in the time to get off, that
You
gives
have
them the chance
to
to
say
say
no.
no.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it was in those moments where, and his boss, my boss's boss, ended up giving me the green light. But that world compared to the entertainment world is night and day.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand, like, finally when they let me, then they started asking questions. So, who's this L.A. Reid guy? And I was like, he's a music executive,
Sort of a
legend,
big deal.
yeah. And he was like, so that's your thing, that's your thing is music? And I'm like, but they tried to make conversation afterwards. But, in that moment, next thing you know, I'm in Ellie Reid's backyard, standing by his infinity pool with DJ Khaled behind me. I'm at a table sitting eating with Puff and Janelle Monáe and uh, Kelly Rowland and a bunch of different people. And I'm supposed to
Yeah.
be at work.
Yeah.
You know
No.
what I mean? And it's like the thought of like I'm supposed to be in a suit and tie making sales calls, but I'm eating dinner with Puff right across from me. You know
You
what I
made the
mean?
right
Me,
you
Puff, and
made the right
Janelle Monáe
decision.
sitting at the table. Yeah.
You
And
made the
so
right decision.
it's moments like that that's like, okay, I don't know why you're showing me this. And I
Mm.
worked there almost another year
Hmm.
before, before that job ended. But it was God putting that little thing right there that's like, don't lose sight. Like, I got you. Um, make this job work for you. Make the sales. Like, get it. Find a way to get excited about making sales. And at the end of the day, that's going to put more money into your pocket. Put that
Yep.
sales money toward the music business. Let
Yep.
that be your motivation. You know what I mean? So get on the
That's
phone,
it.
make those sales because those sales are going to pay for your music.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
so,
it.
yeah,
That's it. And those are the stories that I love hearing because it is a grind. right? And you have to make those decisions. Am I going to show up to work, or am I going to, you know, accept this invitation, or am I, you know, going to grind out for this one period of time, and I don't know where my next meals are going to come from, right? But we see you today as, you know, Rob doing all of this, right? You're up here, but it's a process, and there was a climb. And so I appreciate you letting us in, and sharing that part of your story with us. And so
Definitely.
I love that you said that you're a nerd, and it's so important to know um, a lot about your field, and just, you know, just being inquisitive altogether. And so the name of this podcast is the Amateur Expert Podcast, and it's because my mom told me when I was young that I need to know a little bit about a lot. And so I would love for you now, Rob, to share
Hmm.
with me a random tidbit of information you just shared with us, that that you know, a wealth of knowledge. And so give me something good, something juicy, something random as heck, about, maybe, I don't know, something that you learned in a documentary, or a Snapple fact, anything that I can say that Rob taught me.
All right, I got one. So I actually met this individual uh, at Ellie Reed's house and
Okay.
had no idea who he was. I knew the name, but I didn't know it was him. And
Okay.
so I'm like, who is this old dude sitting in here? I'm in the living room. I'm like, who is this old dude sitting in here on the couch by himself? I see people every now and then going up to him and saying hello and this and that, but he's sitting by himself the entire time. To the
Hmm.
point where something in me was like, yo, go talk to this dude. But I didn't, you
Okay.
know. But it wasn't until a couple years later where a documentary came out called The Black Godfather on Netflix. And
Mm-hmm.
it's on the story of a man named Clarence Avant. And I'm like, that's the dude who was at Ellie Reed's house by himself on the
No,
couch.
no way.
And come to find out, Clarence Avant, once I did my research on him and saw the documentary, this dude is responsible for almost everything black in entertainment.
Really?
Like for real. I don't know if you've seen the documentary.
I haven't seen it. I've heard of him, but, and
Hmm.
I don't know why, but the name is definitely familiar. But what are some of the things that he's responsible for?
So he was known as just sort of like the fixer. Like any deals that were off or not right, people couldn't come to conclusions, he would go in and fix them.
Mm,
He built his whole career off of doing favors for people, which will preach in itself.
mm,
His whole career was built off of just fixing stuff. Like he didn't even ever have like a title.
wow.
Like he didn't, you know what I mean? It's like he just stumbled into it. And so literally he did favors for a lot of big people, fixed deals. There were times when people would be like, all right, he would look over somebody's contract. I remember Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, they were producing,
Mm,
I think, Janet's Control album.
yeah.
And they were like, all right, here's what we requested, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, I got a problem with the budget. And they're like, oh, I mean, we can go down, we can go down. It's not a problem. He's like, no, it's not enough. And he's like, you guys got to get to, you got flights, you got food, you got transportation, you guys are going to be working in the studio, this and that. And they're like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. So he went back in the room and got them a gang more money to be able to
Wow.
work and do this and that. Things
That's
like
what's up.
that. You know what I mean? And so he worked for this executive out in New York who was like, hey, I need you to go to LA and fix some deals for me, this and that, find a house. And so he gets to LA, and this is like the 70s. And he's
Hmm.
like, oh, okay, well, I'm hearing from everybody that, I need to look in Baldwin Hills or, View Park up there because, you know, that's where the black people live. I guess black
Right.
people, we can't live in Beverly Hills. So I got to look over here. So dude calls him a week later. He's like, hey, have you found a house yet? And he's like, no, not yet. And he's like, well, where have you been looking? And he's like, Baldwin Hills, that area. He's like, why are you looking there? Why not Beverly Hills? And he was like, well, I'm black. I'm not allowed to live there. And he's like, go to Beverly Hills and find a house. He's like, okay. Found a house, and he was living in Beverly Hills.
Wow.
You know, dude paid for the house. He was like, just pay me back. You know, I'm buying the house, you know, for you, but just pay me back. His
That's so dope.
mentor ends up dying a few years later.
Hmm.
And I guess it was in his will. His lawyer called him like maybe a couple weeks after he died and was like, hey, is this Clarence Avant? He's like, yeah. And he was just like, your debt is paid, and then hung up the phone.
No.
Yeah. It was in the
Wow.
dude's, you know, like that was one of his requests, like, you know. And so with all of that, he said this thing. I don't even think he meant it for it to be like a quote or for a thing, but it spoke volumes to me.
Hmm.
And he was just like, I don't have problems. I have friends.
Mm.
And that spoke to me because it's like, yo, once you see his life, really, if he ever got into any situation, one phone call fixed everything.
Yeah.
When I hear people say your network is your net worth, it's so true. To be able to pick up the phone and say, I got a problem, that's okay. I know this person, clear it right up.
I love that.
Or I know this person, you can take care of this. I need somebody to blah, blah, blah. So, okay, cool. I got 5 people. Let me call. You know what I mean? To be able to call somebody and who can fix anything and to have, you know, that spoke volumes to me. So if I were to leave something, it would be the quote, I don't have problems, I have friends. And to say,
I love
build your network. And outside of your own business, outside of whatever it is, like build your network of everybody, doctors, lawyers,
that. Hmm. Yeah.
hairstylists, whoever, mechanics, you
Yes.
know what I mean? And also treat any and everybody the same.
Amen.
Because especially living here, you could be standing at a red light waiting across the street, standing next to a multi-billionaire who
Literally.
could be the CEO of a company. Yeah, you have no idea who you're standing next to or who's watching you. So
Yeah.
be kind and respectful to everybody, no matter if it's the janitor or the CEO. Because
Amen.
a lot of times the janitors, small story, I was in a barber shop a few weeks ago. There
Yeah.
was a guy who walked past the barber shop um, who pulled up in like a Bentley, and my barber stopped, went out to talk to him, and then came back. He was like, yo, that guy out there, he used to be the janitor at the school, and now he runs the whole district. He's
You
like, so I
never
love
know.
talking to him, you know, and this and that. But he started off the janitor, cleaning toilets, mopping the floors. Now he runs the entire district.
Amazing.
So,
Amazing. This
yeah.
has been inspiring, insightful, exciting. I'm gonna go watch the documentary. I love documentaries too, so I don't know why I've been slacking on that one, but I'm gonna get into it because I love stories like that, and that's literally the basis or why I keep doing this podcast because everybody's story is incredibly inspiring, no matter what where you are in your career. So thank you again for sharing with us. If anyone's listening, you want to be on the show, hit me up. We want to we want to hear from you. Rob, what was the name of the documentary, The Black Godfather?
On Netflix.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for being our guest.
And I haven't looked at any of these comments. I'm so sorry. I don't know if anybody said anything
There was talk of a
uh,
breakfast
or
burrito
questions.
earlier.
Breakfast burrito. Okay. All right. I don't think it's
Um,
not letting me scroll through some of the comments, but uh, I mean, if anybody has questions or anything,
yeah, we can
DJ,
definitely.
I see
It was
David Joe's on here. That's my guy. It's my
DJ was
brother from
talking.
back home.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
was
David
talking
Joe, amazing artist.
about the breakfast burritos.
Okay. Yeah. 23rd Street near
I love
downtown
it.
where I used to live. Amazing breakfast burritos.
I love it. Well, guys, Rob, I want to give you an opportunity to let people know how they can follow you, support you. You have any projects coming up or anything that you want people to support you on?
Yeah, feel free to follow me at RobG317. And we have to connect too because there's another business I'm building that I think you know, you might be able to assist me in. But yeah, at RobG317, hit me up. Any questions? You want to connect, build? I'm open.
Awesome. You guys have a great week. We will be back next week with another phenomenal story. Thank you again, Rob. And y'all follow Rob. And have a good night. We'll see you soon.